things that I did. You need to understand.
I have to hear one more time that you did this for the family.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was really I was alive.
The Cows, Gusty Renegade Justice, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of racism. Today's date, Thursday, October 10th, 2013. So I have been told we will be back tomorrow as well as Saturday. We should have a day off on on Sunday, but we'll be back Monday. So broadcasting regularly for the month of October. Study session will be tomorrow, same program time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Number 13, Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns. Our broadcast for today, this should be our last program on the immensely popular series that just concluded, Breaking Bad. We did one program about 2 weeks ago from today, when they were going into the concluding episode, the sound clip that you heard at the beginning of the program, that was from the finale. Very important admission, I think, from the show's main character, Walter White. He had been saying all along that I've been selling drugs and blowing up old folks' homes and poisoning children and doing all this stuff for the family, so that I could take care of us and have some money left over for our children once I die from cancer that I've contracted. But as the show concludes, he admits, I have been doing this all because I enjoyed it. Very important. Our program for today, I've been saying the whole reason. I say all the time, I encourage folks, don't spend so much time watching television. So many of our guests have talked about that, getting a fast from sitting in front of the tube and just watching all day long. HD TV is not good for your brain computer. But I've said consistently, I think this show and its popularity, it reveals so much about racism, and there are so many articles that have been written about race in this show by white people. I've been seeing them for about a year. Salon.com, they've had several. I read from a few of the reports last time that we did a show on Breaking Bad, and I thought it would be great to have one of the white people who wrote about this show to see what they like about the show, why they think it's so popular, and just to get some of their views. The person specifically, they wrote, title of their essay was Breaking Bad's Racial Politics, Walter White, Angry White Man. And I thought, great essay. I read some of the paragraphs from the report last time that we did the show. I contacted him. He got the message a little late, so we weren't able to do it before the program ended. But I thought people would be talking about this show for at least another good month, the conclusion and their final thoughts as all this plays out. So I thought a lot of people would still be up to hear more info about it. And I've seen that people are still talking about it. I just saw a report from this week, a couple days ago, that Jeffrey Katzenberg, that he offered to pay $75 million for 3 extra episodes of Breaking Bad. I thought it would be important to just have one more chat about it. Joining us live to discuss his essay and his thoughts on this show, our guest, Mr. Todd VanDerWerff. Mr. VanDerWerff, are you with us?
I am.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Thursday afternoon. I even mixed up the dates. I originally said we were going to do this on Wednesday, but I somehow got confused and said Thursday, and he was agreeable and patient with us. Go ahead and do it on Thursday. If there's anything that you think our listeners should know about you before we get started, please feel free to share.
I've been writing professionally about TV for 5-6 years now. I got my start at the Press Enterprise, Riverside, California, and I primarily work at the AV Club now, although I do freelance at the LA Times and Grantland and Salon.
Okay, right on. And most of your writing centers on entertainment, television, films, that sort of thing?
Yeah. I primarily write about TV. I do some writing about books.
Okay, right on. And you are a white man, is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm a white man.
Okay. We have Mr. VanDerWerff. Can I just say Todd? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, please call me Todd, please.
Right on. We have Todd with us for just an hour, so I would encourage folks, if you have questions about the show, don't hesitate. Go ahead and get your hand up early if you want to get a question in. I'd said that I think this show, it's so popular with white people, so many white people that I've seen enjoy the show. I think it's always good to ask them questions, just what they think about the show, different characters, some of the racial dynamics that play out in the show. So if you want to dial in, do not wait. The number to dial, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. I'll give out the number again before we get to about the 30-minute mark. Before we hop into the whole series and everything, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a system of racism, just so I can be clear about terms. When I say racism, I use it as a synonym to white supremacy, and I use the same definition for both of those terms, racism and white supremacy. The definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists, and do you think that's an accurate definition?
I believe that there is a system that would fit that definition. Yes.
Right on. Okay. I will hop right into it. I think for me, it's important to start off because I think this show, one of the reasons that I've watched it, I don't even enjoy that many TV programs, and I found this immensely enjoyable and very informative about that system of racism, white supremacy. I think it's important to ask, do you know, how much do you know about Walt Whitman? They do a poetry recital in the middle of Breaking Bad. I think for folks who've watched the show, Walt Whitman is a pretty integral plot aspect of how all of this evolves. If anyone has seen the show, how much do you know about his writing and particularly his views on race?
I know about Walt Whitman. I don't know very much about his views on race. I did do quite a bit of reading on him in college, but that's been 10 years ago now. So I'm familiar with his work, I guess I'd say.
Okay. And the only reason that I got this, I have to acknowledge Timothy McNair. He's a graduate student at Northwestern University. He was a guest on that program earlier this year. And he made a stand. He was supposed to do a recital with 3 pieces. One of those pieces was supposed to be a selection from Walt Whitman. He refused to do it, and he said that Walt Whitman is a racist. I'm not going to recite this racist. And people got upset with him, and what are you talking about? How could you say that? And he said, I took a sociology class in undergrad, and we did research, and this guy had a very poor opinion of black people. And I was stunned because I've been saying the whole time that Breaking Bad is all about racism. That's what it reveals every time out. That's why I think it's so popular. That's what I've been saying. And then I didn't know about Walt Whitman. So then when I get more information, it was, oh, my gosh, I should have just started right there to begin with. This is from The Better Angel, Walt Whitman and the Civil War. And I just want to get your comments about how you think this relates, because you say in your essay, Vince Gilligan and the people who write, produce, who created Breaking Bad, these folks are pretty smart. They seem well-informed. Vince Gilligan has a pretty impressive Hollywood writing career. X-Files, Hancock, he's done quite a bit, so I think he's pretty knowledgeable in the writing department. This is from The Better Angel, Walt Whitman and the Civil War, page 80. Talking about Walt Whitman, he would put the matter even more crudely in an aside to Horace Trebell 30 years later. That is one reason why I never went full on the nigger question, he said. The nigger would not do anything for himself. He would only act when prompted to act. No, I should not like to see the nigger in the saddle. It seems unnatural. Given such views, it is not surprising that Whitman's erstwhile publisher, Charles Eldridge, would later observe, I never knew him to have a friend among the Negroes while he was in Washington. Of the Negro race, he had a poor opinion. He said that there was, in the constitution of the Negro's mind, an irredeemable, trifling, or volatile element, and he would never amount to much in the scale of civilization. Thoughts on Walt Whitman. Now, I think getting more in, there's pages of this stuff, the more research you want to dig on Walt Whitman, his views on black people and slavery, their place in this area of the world. That, I think, is very important for how things play out in the series, and even the name. I think in several points in this series, they hint or suggest that, hey, Walter White, Walt Whitman, how about that? I think that happens a few times throughout the series. Yeah. What do you think about Whitman's racial views, particularly on black people, and how that may be leaking out in the series Breaking Bad?
I would not be surprised if Vince Gilligan, who's very well read and knows his stuff, had come across that in the past. I certainly think that there is a sort of racial coding to the name Walter White, and especially also to the name Jesse PINKman. I can't say for certain that he has encountered that, but it would not surprise me if he, called us up and said that that's exactly what I was thinking, and I'm glad somebody caught on to it.
You, in your essay, near the end, this is the second to last paragraph, you say that Walter White is not a racist. And just what I just read from Walt Whitman's passage, I would say, well, I'm not so sure. And even some of his actions throughout the series, him partnering up with a neo-Nazi gang, pretty much until the finale, I think all of the people that he directly kills are non-white people, with the exception, unless you count Jane, that's, I don't think that's a direct kill, even though he was there. Kind of put that one to the side, but I think up until Michael Ehrmantraut and the Nazi gang in the final episode, all the people that he kills are non-white people. How is it that you, in your essay, you say pretty definitively Walter White is not a racist?
I think that he would not describe himself as that. I think that he would not think of himself as that. I think that he, the common definition of racism that you'd find in much of society, openly discriminating against someone or something like that. I think that he would say, I would never do that. But I think that he benefits from, the systematic racism and systematic racial inequalities, and in ways he doesn't even realize, and is also, sort of subconsciously tuned to support those things, if that makes sense.
It does, but I don't think I don't think that's the most accurate way, because I've heard that frequently. I think that's one of the patterns I've observed, where white people will say, oh, well, these white people, or I personally as a white person, benefit from the system of racism, but they're not talking about ways that they practice and or they imply or suggest that they are ignorant about all of this, that they do these things, but they're just not aware. He's partnered with a racist gang. They've got swastikas tattooed on their necks visibly. I mean, that right there would be, I think that would pretty much be enough. Like, that would be a slam dunk under most cases. Like, how did you not see the swastikas? This seems pretty blatant. And even before I even get there, I would say I think he's very aware. If you contrast and compare Walter White with Gus Fring, that you do beautifully in your essay, Gus Fring's character, I say black person, definitely non-white person, he has to be so meticulous with everything. Yeah. What he says, how he conducts himself. He has to pretend to be the way Walter White was in the first episode. I'm just a middling kind of stupid guy going through, doing my thing. I'm involved in the community. I'm on the board at the hospital. I contribute to the fund run with the police. Walter White does not have to be that careful at all. He can throw tantrums when he gets stopped by the police. He can blow up the old folks' home. I mean, to me, I feel like it's very obvious. He understands I'm a white man. They're not going to look at me at all. They're not going to look at me the same way that they look at you. I think that right there is his understanding. I'm white, and I think it even drives what you talk about in your article, this politics of the angry white. I mean, you said in your essay, I'm white, and I'm angry that I'm not getting things that I'm supposed to get as a white man. And even with Gus Fring, I'm white. I'm not supposed to be answering to this nigger boss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I absolutely agree that the neo-Nazis, that is absolutely a point at which, he's crossed the line in his, and is engaging in that, in like racist behavior. I wonder, again with Gus, though, how much of it is subconscious on Walter's part, is driven by that subconscious. So much of Walter is driven by his subconscious rage and his subconscious need to take. And I wonder how much of that is driven there as well, which I agree is a racist behavior, but I don't know how conscious it is on his part.
That's what I started with, the very last episode, and that aired after you wrote your essay. He has a moment of being blatantly honest, I think, with Skylar.
Absolutely.
He talks about, what do you think about that scene where he says, hey, I enjoyed it. I felt alive, which I think is very important because Walter White, not only had he been preparing and thinking that he was going to die pretty much from episode 1 of the series, he wanted to die. When he found out that his cancer was in remission, he was furious. He mopes about this for a while and thinking, man, I wanted to die. What do you think about that scene from the last episode?
I thought it was my favorite scene of the finale. I thought it was very telling. I thought it was very honest on his part in a way that he just really hasn't been. And it was telling, I think, that he had that conversation with Skylar, because we could discuss the show just as much in grounds of feminism and patriarchal systems against women. And certainly the show in its last 2 or 3 seasons turned into a show about how he was, essentially keeping Skylar in a box and being emotionally abusive to her, and she didn't really have a way out of that because that was the way the system was built up against her.
With him saying he liked it, even going back earlier in season 5 when he's having the discussion with Jesse that he's not going to, the buyout episode, I'm not going to sell this methylamine to get the $5 million for us each. I am about empire building. And Jesse's like, what? There's nothing to be proud of in having a meth empire. And Walt disagrees totally. He says, hey, I lost my family. I lost my wife. This meth empire is all I got, and I'm not selling out. Just looking back at the track record of what Walter White has been, and this is something that I keep in mind because I think this show's popularity, the final episode, I think had close to 11 million viewers, where you have this gentleman, this white man, his name again, Jeffrey Katzenberg, offering $75 million for 3 extra episodes of Breaking Bad. I think this speaks not just to the racism in the show, but the overall racism on the part of white people as to why this show would be so popular. Walter White, from season 1, this is not like he evolved and became a bad person, which I hear a lot of people say. From the very first season, they are killing. The very first episode, he kills someone. The very first episode. By the time you get to episode 4, they have killed directly killed 2 people who are both non-white, and they have dissolved the bodies in acid.
Yes.
Now you move from there to him killing children, him watching a woman overdose on heroin and not doing anything, watching her literally choke on her own vomit and not doing anything about it, and all the other blowing up in old folks on everything else that they do that Walter White does in this series, for him to get to the end and say, I liked it. And for him to be really the person that people are rooting for. I think most of the people who watch this show, they're still rooting for Walter White all the way to the end. I think that says a lot about what it means to be white in a system of racism. I think that's it. And what does that mean to you?
I'm one of those people who really wanted to see Walter get punished in some way toward the end of the season. I thought, especially as we got into the back half of the series, that he had essentially become completely evil, for lack of a better word. But I agree that there are all sorts of people who were watching the show, who were rooting for Walter in a weird way, who wanted him to get what he wanted. And in that regard, the finale was a bit of a disappointment to me, because I thought it eased off a little bit on the case that had been building against him.
For folks, which I kind of thought was going to happen, what I had been saying in the last, when we did the program before the conclusion, I said I thought that the neo-Nazis, they were going to get thrown under the bus. It was going to be almost kind of a switch. They were going to become the bad guys, and you be for what, which is kind of what happened, where you're rooting for him to go and kill them, which does happen, even though Walt does die at the end. But he does kind of kill them. He rescues Jesse, and he gets some form of redemption, which I would even say that. I think that's classic racism, white supremacy, where the white person, the racist, what I would say in this case, finds a way to be redeemed. We're not going to view this white person as being super evil, super bad guy. He kills the overtly racist white people, and he gets money to his children in a sneaky kind of way, and he dies without having to go to jail or facing any comeuppance for everything that he's done, which is interesting because Vince Gilligan in an interview had said that he believes in punishment. He said what you said. He believes that the world is just and you're supposed to get what you deserve for doing bad things, and I don't really think that happens to anybody, any of the white people in Breaking Bad. I don't really think that happens.
I think that the show, when it was doling out punishment, it ended up on the heads of people. The punishment was sort of not fitting the crime in some ways. Like Jesse was punished far more than Walter was in many ways, and Jesse was sort of presented as the series', I guess, moral compass in some ways, even though he does a lot of bad things. And Gus was horribly and brutally killed for having a moment of weakness, basically. But it pulled back a lot on Walter and sort of tried to halfway redeem him, and I thought that was a misstep on the part of the show.
I guess the only thing I would say, I don't think that's a misstep. I think that's a pattern that I see where white, even going back to what you said at the beginning about you don't think Walt's a racist, you don't think he's aware. I think that happens consistently where we just do not cite white people under this system. They somehow get a pass or are redeemed. Even with Walt Whitman, I think people do the same thing as well. That was just a product of his time, and a lot of people felt that way. I think this has been happening for a long, long time, where white people are not indicted for incorrect things that they do, particularly when they're mistreating non-white people. And there's a lot of that in Breaking Bad, particularly Walt and what he's doing. As I said, most of the people that he kills, they're non-white people. Let's see. Did you have a comment before I move forward?
No, I think to a degree that's baked into the show, though. As I said in my essay, that he can get away with this stuff. I think the show is cognizant of that, at least in terms of observing its own racial politics, that he can get away with this stuff because he is a white man, and he is someone that people will not look at because of the way that this whole system is sort of set up to be more suspicious of others than him.
I'd said pretty confidently in our first broadcast that we did on this show, there's no way you could do a show like this where the main character, the main family is black, the main character is black, where Walter White, Jesse PINKman, those are black guys. There's no way you could do a show like this and have them be kind of the heroes, even though they're actually villains and doing all this bad stuff. Do you think that's accurate?
I agree. I think it would be impossible not just to do that show, but also even to get it bankrolled. Hollywood right now has a lot of systems set in place, sort of basically to keep out outside voices like that, and it's not it's not a good situation. But also, yeah, I don't know that it would be possible to do that version of the show just in terms of, you know, what is getting on the air, if that makes sense.
I want to look at some of the non-white characters because I think that also pulls a lot in terms of the racism. What I'm saying, I think it's blatant. I think it's cognizant, and particularly for Vince Gilligan, big-time Hollywood writer, producer. I just think it's deliberate racism. That's all I can conclude. And I'll make sure we hit the phone lines. I see some people called in as well. The number again is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943. Our guest, Mr. Todd VanDerWerff. We talked about Gus a little bit. I'm going to push him to the side because I think that should come up. His character should come up again. Blatant racism. Huell Babineaux, bodyguard for Saul Goodman. Your thoughts on this character?
Huell, I don't know. The show has a long list of characters who are primarily used as comic relief, and I think that Huell is sort of that. He's I believe that the actor who plays him is a comedian, and the other one of Saul's lackeys, I guess you'd say, QB, is played by another comedian. They're sort of like Badger and Skinny Pete. I think they're sort of held up as there's sort of the goofy side to keep things from getting too dark. I would never put Huell on my list of favorite characters on the show, but I think that's his function within the show.
Keep things from getting too dark. Important. What I would say, number one, Skinny Pete, Badger combo. You have quite a few goofy characters on this show who are white. Even Saul Goodman to some degree. However, since there are so many white characters, not a big deal because you do get to see white people who are not goofy, who are serious, who are smart, who are doing things. Yeah. There are not that many black people on this show. So to only have maybe 5 black people who actually get to talk and are present on more than one episode, and one of them being Huell, very important. And I even see a difference with regards to, you said Saul's lackeys. I see a pretty big difference with regard to Huell's character and the other one, I think it's Q-Ball, I think you said his name. I see a pretty big difference. In fact, I think one of the scenes that, in my view, makes the racism so clear, I think this is one of the best scenes with regards to articulating that racism. This is from the beginning of season 4. I'll play it and just, you can give your comments because I could be wrong, and definitely feel free to let me know, hey, you misinterpreted, Gus. What you're saying is you're making up stuff and you're just projecting your own thoughts on something that's not there. This is from season 4. This is Saul Goodman, Walter White, Skylar White, and Huell Babineaux. Walter, Skylar, Saul, they are discussing if they're going to buy the car wash from Bogdan and how they're going to do this. I can just stop her. It will speak for itself. Before I hit the clip, do you think Bogdan, the character who owned the car wash that Walt worked for initially, do you think he's a white person or a non-white person?
Bogdan, he's supposed to be like an Eastern European immigrant. So I don't know offhand. He's been in the show so little, but I think he's supposed to be an Eastern European immigrant. So he's either white or possibly like Arabic or in origin.
Is he somebody that you accept as a white person?
What's that?
Is he someone, that character, is he someone that you accept as a white person? I don't remember for certain. I remember him being like Czech or Slavic or something like that. So yeah, white. Okay. I would encourage listeners, even if you haven't seen the show, if you just pay attention to that to this clip, the racial status of Bogdan, who owns the car wash that they're talking about purchasing, that's going to come up explicitly in the clip. So just pay attention. We'll get Todd's thoughts once it's done. Context of White Supremacy.
2 words, nail salon. It's perfect for money laundering. It's a high-volume, cash-preferred business with a discreet workforce. I mean, nobody does Mr. Mino nothing better than Mrs. Mukjayaporn and her gals.
Mr. Goodman,
Saul, please. Now, for the lady of the house, drum roll, please. How about a lifetime supply of French manicures and enzyme peels? Oh, yeah, go ahead, pinch yourself.
We're not buying a nail salon, Mr. Goodman. We're getting the car wash.
I'm sorry. Am I missing something here? I mean, didn't you already try that? Yeah. I mean, Walt told me that you took a run at this Bogdan character and he wrestled you into submission with his eyebrows. $10 million, that was the asking price, right?
Apparently he upped it to 20.
Wow, nice negotiating. Yeah, I mean, hey, you bombed, it happens. You were smart to call me. Now, you just sit back, relax, and let a professional take over. That's for me. Excuse me. What do you want? I'm in a meeting. Why didn't you think of that before? It's not my... I'm in a meeting. Can Huell use your bathroom?
Huell?
Sure, the top of the stairs.
He'll be quick. It's a stomach thing. So where were we?
Professionalism.
Yeah, so if the guy won't sell, he won't sell.
I don't accept that. I don't accept that he won't sell. I think he just lacks the proper motivation.
Motivation? As in motivation? I mean, just so we're on the same page here, you're saying we make him an offer he can't refuse?
Nothing so dramatic as that, no. Motivation. Attitude adjustment.
This one, she's a keeper. Well, I know it can be highly motivating. I know a gal over at Tax and Revenue, you give her 10 minutes in this Bogdan fella's books, she'll have his sky raining frogs.
No, we don't want to draw any unwanted tax attention. We don't want them looking at us after Bogdan sells.
All right. How about an ICE raid? You know he's got illegals working over there. I mean, he just has to.
We are not getting a bunch of poor, innocent people in trouble, no.
Yeah, and also you're going to need him after you take over. Hey, how about terrorism? Oh, Agent Hoover, I got to tell you, I've seen some real Islamic comings and goings over there at the car wash. Yeah, I mean, guys in turbans pulling up in vans and stuff like that.
Saul, Bogdan is Romanian.
Okay, well, we're just spitballing here, so... Look, there's always... You got a real nice place here. Shame if something happened to it. That angle.
What are you talking about? Violence?
Attitude adjustment.
Oh, no. That is not at all what I meant. We do not do that. That's not who we are, right?
Yeah, no, she's right. Look, do I need to state the obvious? I mean, there's got to be dozens of car washes in this area. Who says it has to be this one?
I do. I say it has to.
Why?
I just do.
Well, that clears things up.
I don't like him.
Oh.
Bogdan. He was condescending to me, rude about you, and I do not like him. Simple as that.
Hey, nobody appreciates a passionate woman more than I do. But in this business, and Walt can back me up on this, the number one rule is don't take things personally.
What do you mean, rude about me?
Something along the lines of you weren't man enough to face him yourself.
What?
That you had to send your woman to do your business for you.
Okay, speaking as your lawyer, I'm going to go on record and say this is a bad idea. Now, I advise against...
It's this one.
Okay, so, All we have to do is think of a nonviolent, unsuspicious way to purchase the car wash that protects the innocent and doesn't cost $20 million. Don't everybody speak at once.
Context of White Supremacy. They end the scene with Huell flushing the toilet. Right. I just feel like the racism is overflowing in that scene. Your thoughts?
Well, I feel pleased that I vaguely remembered Bogdan was from Eastern Europe. That I'm happy about. To me, the Saul Goodman character is just such a sleazebag and such a scumball. Obviously, he's meant to be presented in a comedic way where we're supposed to sort of laugh at him and what he's doing. And then everything around him and his whole environment is that way as well. I absolutely see what you're saying, and I absolutely understand the point of view you're coming from. But to me, he's such a weird comedic creation that everything around him sort of gets dragged into that orbit as well.
The illegal car wash, that's a tactic that we can use to muscle Bogdan into selling. And then that's right, we should keep them because then we can use them for cheap labor. And I've seen some strange Islamic comings and goings. To me, even that, very racist white supremacist. I don't think he would make that sort of comment if it was someone who looked like Walter White or Marie Schrader, someone who there was no ambiguity about their racial classification. I think even later in the scene when Skylar is insistent we got to get this car washed, I feel personally insulted, and he impugned Walter White's manhood, so we're going to take this car wash from him, and we're not even going to compensate him correctly. I feel like with Huell's character, because you were saying that kind of Saul Goodman is kind of laugh, joke. He's a comedian too, and Patrick Cubey, that's the other lackey person that works for Saul. He gets to talk intelligently. When they go to strong arm Ted Beneke, he gets to speak intelligently. He's not just there, laugh, and particularly laugh at me, where it's not that he's making a joke, where you're just laughing at nonsense of this character. I feel like that happens pretty routinely with Huell's character, and it's not like he's major, but most of the time when he's there, you're pretty much laughing at his ineptitude, which I feel like is pretty staple racism. Black people just being there to be mocked. It's going back to Walt Whitman being black people just being there to be mocked and referenced for their inability. I mean, am I talking crazy here?
I don't think you're talking crazy. I absolutely understand what you're saying. I had never thought of it that way, and I think a lot of the humor around Huell also centers on his weight. Which is just one of those old comedy tropes that if you have a guy that big, doing stuff, it's going to be a little amusing. And I say that as somebody who's significantly overweight myself, but I understand what you're saying, but to me, it had never occurred to me. So.
Fascinating. I would also say there are a lot of racist jokes in this show. I think I said on the previous time we did this program that I think Huell's whole character is just one big joke. This scene, and I think later on Saul says he has fingers like hot dogs. There's another scene where he's supposed to be security and he's asleep, and Michael Ehrentraut just looks at him with disgust. I think it's kind of the same, the incompetent fat black person. But Hank Schrader, he makes a lot of racist comments about Steve Gomi. He never even calls him his name. It's just Gomi. Hey, Gomi. Hey, Gomi. And Beans. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of racist jokes, racist, blatant, like explicit, not just some of the things that I think are a little more subtle. There are a lot of blatant and explicit racist comments made by a variety of characters of this series. I will hit the phone lines because I do see hands. I want to make sure we don't miss folks. We have quite a few folks that called in, so just get your question. If you have statements, we can do that later. Just get to your questions. I think this should be Cynical African, cynicalafrican.com, cynicalafrican.com. Did you have a question, sir? Oh, maybe I got my lines crossed up. Person that dialed in 3557. Did you have a question for Todd?
Hello. I just wanted to say, well, when I was listening to the scene, I did notice that there were racism inside the particular scene, and I just wanted to ask. I don't know his name, but I wanted to ask: is he aware of the racism in the film?
Todd, did you hear the question?
I heard very bits and pieces, but I wasn't able to piece it together. Can you repeat it for me?
You could speak up, sir.
I just wanted to ask him, was he aware of the racism in the film?
I think the question was, are you aware of the racism in the show Breaking Bad? I think that was the question.
Yeah, I think, some of the stuff that we pointed out, like Saul's joking or like Hank's joking, yeah, I had noticed that. And in the Salon piece I wrote, there was some mention of, certainly how Gus's character was treated in relation to Walter's. I guess where I would differ from your point of view is that I think a lot of that is intentional on Vince Gilligan's part to sort of interrogate that aspect of American life. I think he's doing it deliberately to make the viewers think about that aspect of their own lives. However successful he is in that regard, aside, because certainly there's a significant portion of the audience that does not think of the show in that way.
Or perhaps enjoys it for those bits of racist humor.
Sure.
The person that dialed in, last four digits, 8423. 8423, did you have a question for Mr. Todd VanDerWerff?
Yeah. Hi, Gus, and hello to the guest. Well, I just wanted to make the quick statement that I was kind of like 85% sure that Walt White and Jesse PINKman were representative of the white race, but until I saw the last episode when Walter White said, "I liked it," then that sealed the deal. And to me, that kind of showed the brilliance of Mr. Gilligan and how he made us root for a drug dealer. And that shows the power of propaganda and how propaganda can be used to make you root for the bad guy, just like CNN, ABC does the same thing to us every night. But the reason why I say that Walt White represents the white race because Walt came down with cancer. Well, my question would be to the guest: do you think that could be accurate, that Walt White, Jesse PINKman represents the white race coming out of Europe and conquering the world for various reasons?
I think that's certainly sure. I think that's certainly a valid interpretation of the show and what Vince Gilligan's trying to do. I don't think it's the only one. I don't know that it's the primary one even, but I certainly see that there, that sort of story there when I watch the show, and especially when I rewatch it, and I'm out from under, what the next plot twist is going to be.
Because it's kind of the same thing when, like in the 1800s, they came out with White Man's Burden. We're doing this to spread religion. We're doing this to help the uncivilized. And then when it came right down to it at the end, I liked it.
Yeah,
that's my
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
It's always there's always some excuse, but it comes down to I liked it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Caller in Alabama, did you have a question for Mr. Todd VanDerWerff? Caller in Alabama.
Yes. Could I be heard?
Yes, sir.
My question has something to do with movies. It's not necessarily Breaking Bad, but it's just something I noticed in Hollywood. Is it odd if I ask the question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I noticed Hollywood, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think the main reason Hollywood was set up, I would stick with that, the main reason. I'm not going to say the only reason, but I would say the main reason. The main reason I think movies came out of Hollywood was for propaganda. Kind of like to brainwash the public, and I would say to make a mockery and degrade black males. And as an example, I would use one of the first movies in Hollywood, what I would call, I think it's called Birth of a Nation. And the whole thing about the black male being a rapist and outlaw and wanting to rape the white woman and things of that nature. And I kind of noticed sometimes, not just white women, some women, they even have role play. Well, it just be, male and female. They'll one pretend like they're the rapist. And
caller in Alabama, you just get to your question.
Make it short. Okay. But now I noticed, like, when I was growing up, black males, they were mostly, in the movies, they were tough guys and gangsters like the white guy on Breaking Bad. And it seemed that lately, like, they're not really the tough guys no more in movies. I see the black male as being beat up and, either a homosexual or wearing a dress or whatever the case may be. And I see the white guy, he's no longer in the cap no more, like in the white cap. And you got he's saving the day with his 6-shooter, or whatever the case may be. Do you think that this is movies like Breaking Bad is something white supremacists have noticed when they tried to pit a black male as a criminal? It kind of backfired on Hollywood and the white male majority, making the black male an outlaw sex symbol. And so the white male are trying to soften up the black male's image by making them gay or homosexual, and now trying to replace the black male as the outlaw sex symbol image. I mute my line.
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know how to say, what's intentional and what's unintentional, but the system of Hollywood is very set up to reward, the white males have the vast majority of executive jobs. They're the ones who get the most say in what is shown on your TV or what is shown on the big screen, and it's often very hard to get them to see outside of their own perspective, which is why we get so many movies and TV shows from that perspective. And in some ways, you almost have to get those shows greenlit or to get those movies greenlit. It almost has to be, it either has to be just a huge certain moneymaker, or you have to go outside the system, which is why you see so many independent films with themes that aren't necessarily of interest to the typical middle-aged white guy.
1804. Do you have a question for Mr. Todd VanDerWerff?
Since I've actually never seen an episode, I'm just going to keep listening. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Caller in Brooklyn. Your line should be open. Caller in Brooklyn, did you have a question?
Yeah, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Great. Good evening to the guest and to Gus and the callers. Excuse me. I was just wondering, you made a couple comments that made it seem like you kind of identify with the character in the program in Breaking Bad. Like, you were like, I don't think he meant it to be racist about something, and then you were talking about the intentions of the people that made the program, the show, and it seemed like you kind of like identified with them as a white person, like as far as their intentions, like whether you're like, oh, I don't think he meant to be racist or whatever about something. I can't remember what it was. But I was just wondering, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
No. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, I was just saying. I was going to ask, what would you attribute to if you said that to the caller from Alabama? You were saying that it wasn't that the whole white supremacy kind of conquest. You wouldn't say that that was the primary kind of story that was being told, like metaphorically. You said that it wasn't it might be a thread, but not the primary thread. I was just wondering, what would you attribute Walter White's like lack of satisfaction with like the immense wealth, just all of the success that he had? Why would you say that it isn't white supremacy? Like, why wasn't he satisfied with all that he had, accumulated? And that's my question. Thank you.
I think it's a good question. I think that the need to have more, the need to want more, I think it is very much in the show coded as this is the angry white male, the American middle-aged angry white male who always wants more and always wants to take more, even especially from people who he thinks he deserves it over, even if he doesn't understand why he thinks that. I think that certainly is a part of the show's DNA, a part of the show's story. It's telling, maybe a part of the show's appeal for some people. But I think that there is a human component to that any human being can understand of always wanting more. Of never having enough. Like that's a very old story that's been told in every culture on Earth. It's almost mythological on some level, and I think that's why the show works for such a broad audience, because you can understand that impulse within yourself.
Folks have other questions. I would encourage them not to wait until the very last minute. If you have something you want to get into Todd before he exits, we should have time if anyone has any other statements or thoughts that they want to get in on the program. I did want to see if I can get in some of the other non-white characters and thoughts on white women in the show as well. One quick point I did want to make: his pseudonym, Walter White's pseudonym in the show, Heisenberg, picking this German Nazi scientist. It gets referenced even in the program. Hank says this when he's looking for Heisenberg before he finds out that this is Walt. And he says this is some Nazi scientist. It gets referenced within that gets talked about. I would say that's another point in my view that would point to intentionality, where both of the names for this character have real-life racist, white supremacist implications, Walter White and Heisenberg, and the neo-Nazi pops up several times. So in my view, just when you see this pattern over and over again, to me, that strongly suggests conscious, deliberate, willful intent. I could be incorrect, but the patterns are kind of blatant in my view. And central to the show. These are not just periphery things. These are, right there, the main character that you're supposed to be looking at and paying attention to from season 1 to the very end. Of racist stuff just right in the name. With some of the other non-white characters, I think, two, Dr. Del Cavoli, he's the oncologist for Walter White in season 2, and Chuck, he's the physical therapist for Hank in season 4. These are both black males, and I thought that was interesting, too. Do you have any thoughts on why they would have black males in these roles as healers for white men?
I don't offhand. I hadn't remembered either of those characters off the top of my head. So I don't have thoughts offhand, but I'm curious to hear yours.
Fascinating. It reminded me of The Cosby Show. If I had to pick something where I think you can have black people in a position, if they're going to be minstrels, telling jokes, being silly like Huell, and or if you are going to be serving the interest of white people, helping them to be all that they can be in practicing racism, white supremacy, The Cosby Show, helping them, aiding them, healing them, getting their wounds straight, or whatever the case may be. I think there are a lot of different characters in that role, all the way back Gone with the Wind, The Help, where you have a white person who is subservient to assist them. And I think that's both of these people I think Chuck's character, I didn't even remember until I had to go back and rewatch. Be like, oh, there it is again. Chuck blackmail Hank at his weakest moment when he doesn't even want to leave the hospital, and he's there coaching him, cheering him on. He does such a good job that Marie, I don't know if it was a joke or not, but she asks if he wants to move in with them. That might even be a cowbell. And then Dr. Cavoli, I would say the same thing, that this is the specialist. We want to get you the best, even if it's not a part of our insurance plan. We want you to work and see if you can work some magic to get Walter White healed up so you can come back and my thoughts around those two characters. With Gus, one point before I get to the white women, with Gus, cynical African, he raised the point in saying that he felt, you talking your piece about Walter White being emasculated, he was saying that he felt Gus Fring, his character, is emasculated and might even be presented as a homosexual male. You never see him interact with his wife or the mother of his children. You hear that he has children, but you never see him with his children. I don't even think there's a point where you see photographs of his children or him with the family the same way that you do with Walter White or Michael Ehrmantraut, some of the other white characters where you see them in a family setting. And particularly when I went back and watched the episode from season 4, Hermanos, where it shows how Gus got this rival with Mr. Salamanca that spans for years and years and years. When he's there and he's pitching the idea where they're going to sell crystal meth and he has his partner there with him, when Hector is urinating in the pool and they're like, wow, you're peeing in the pool, what are you doing? And he's like, nobody's going to tell. And he looks at Gus and his partner and he says, and he blows them a kiss. And I thought, oh, wow, because that had just been suggested. And there's several articles online that talk about, hey, we think Gus, they've kind of homosexualized his character. Do you think that could be the case? What do you think about that?
I remember that episode very specifically. I remember that moment. I always felt that they were hinting that Gus might have been, that Gus was gay, but they very carefully never actually came out and said it. So you could read it as just the other, the Salamanca family sort of taunting him in a certain way. But I thought that was an interesting choice. Like I thought intimating that, I thought it made Gus a more interesting character. And he was already one of the most fascinating characters on the show, so that was taking it up another level.
Giancarlo Esposito. It even looked like he might have had makeup on when I went back and watched that episode. I think the way they were playing it might have just been because he wears glasses and he didn't have his glasses on in that scene, so it could have just been tanning issues where he had a tan line on his eyes, but to me it looked like he might have had makeup on. It added to that whole, maybe they're hinting the fact that he might have had makeup on, and then the comment that Hector makes at the pool, and very interesting. And like I said, there's several. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think the makeup issue is just they put on stuff to make him look younger.
Right.
And they didn't really have the budget to be doing that, so it looked pretty fake.
Even budgeted, they said in this article where they were offered $75 million for 3 extra episodes. They said that the last series cost about $3.5 million per episode. That to me, I don't do television and film. That seems like they had a sizable budget to work with. It seemed like they had a lot of special effects, and I can't recall offhand any other moments where I thought, oh, this looks like they got a bad makeup job for this character in this scene. Like they have some other scenes where they make characters look younger. They do a flashback scene with Walter White and Gretchen where they're in school doing some problems on the board together. I think they do a flashback scene with Jesse later on when he's working on the little box that he made as a part of his shop class. I think they have quite a few. Even with Hector, they have a flashback. There's no other moment where I can think, oh, wow, this person's makeup. I don't know. It stands out. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I did think a few times they made Walter try to look younger. I think there's a reason they stopped doing that because it never worked very well. And, they were always kind of a low-budget show. Even the $3.5 million is kind of a low budget for a TV series when you think about some other series that have, $6 million an episode or so. And most of that goes to actor salaries as well. So I'm not trying to discount what you're saying, but I do think it was more of a budgetary issue than anything else.
Okay. Last one, if I can get it in really quick. You are critical. I guess you had raised the issue earlier about Skylar being boxed in and Walter being emotionally abusive to her, particularly in some of the later seasons 4 and 5. In my view, I think one of the things that stood out, in fact, I can go to a specific episode. I would have sound clipped it, but it was Walter White watching television. And so it's you're hearing him when he's watching TV, so the volume is not as high. But I think, for me, one of the things that I enjoy most about this show, you talked about morality. I don't think any of these characters are moral. Cast, they did an interview on New York Times, and they had everybody, or most of the cast, most of the main people, and they were talking, and they were saying, I think Hank was trying to suggest that his character was moral, and Jesse interrupts him and says, well, you did come to my house and beat the crap out of me. And he's like, oh, yeah, I did too. It's none of these characters. I mean, yeah, you have Walter White, he's doing all this stuff, but I mean, everybody, all of the white people are somehow involved in criminal things. They know about criminal things, and they're concealing it. Everybody. And I look at the white women, because when I hear racism, blame gets attributed to white men. It's white male patriarchy. That's the problem. It's white male patriarchy, and it's as though white women are not culpable. And when I watch this show, I see the power of white women on display because it's so subtle. The way that Skylar White is able to, I think, control and manipulate things, even though she realizes, hey, I can't stop you from going out and selling and doing all this, but I can get the kids out of it. I can get the children out of the house. Ultimately, she is kind of the one that unravels things. Her and Marie, really, it's those two that kind of unravel things at the end for Walt. And just looking at some of the white women characters, Lydia Rodart Quayle, Jane Margolis, Marie Schrader, Skylar White, not only are they also, I think, heavily involved in criminal activity, but being subtly manipulative, where it looks like Hank is the guy running the show, it looks like Walt is the guy running the show, but these women, I think that's a big part of the reason, in my view, that so many of the viewers don't like Skylar's character, because she does stand up to Walt. She doesn't just take whatever you say. She does stand up to him, and she does do things to go back against your victim and take all this abuse. And the scene that I was thinking, it's from season 2, and it's one of the most important episodes in the series. The night that Jane overdoses, another powerful white woman who stands up to Walt. It's not Jesse, it's Jane who stands up to him and gets Jesse's money. When he goes, or before he leaves the house to go to give them the money, he's watching, I think it's National Geographic or some nature show about elephants. It says, you can hear it, it says, elephants' society is fiercely matriarchal. The oldest female elephant, here, this is what he's watching, and this gets referenced again. If you continue to watch the series, Walter White goes back to that moment. He says, this is the moment I should have died. And he even talks about what he was watching on television. He said, I was watching elephants on the show, and they were saying elephants are a matriarchal society. Can you kind of give your thoughts on what I think it's a very subtle, manipulative form of control that I think is exhibited by all of the main white female characters in the show?
Well, I think that there is an element of, I guess you'd say that the character in dramatic literature that would be most similar to would be someone like Lady Macbeth in Macbeth. And I think, though, that one of the traits of the show is that it wants to say that everybody basically is a sinner, to put it in like religious terms, that everybody does something bad. And you see that even with Marie, who's largely a supporting character who doesn't have a lot to do with the main story, how she is still like a kleptomaniac. So you see it. You do see that the show wants to sort of say that everybody sins, everybody does these bad things, and I think that in some ways this is an extension of that.
I totally agree. I think for me that's one of the things that sticks out most, specifically with the female characters. I think it's Marie. She does a lot to kind of push Hank to continue pursuing Walt when he's kind of feeling like he's given up. Even when Hank's in the hospital after he's been shot, he doesn't want to leave the hospital. He's feeling sad, feeling down on himself. She's the one that, hey, get up, get out there. You can't just do that. I think the same thing happens when Walter is initially diagnosed with cancer. He is kind of like, whatever, I'm resigned to his fate, and she's kind of like, hey, man, you got to, get up. You can't just quit. You got to go get the treatment. Do you think are you seeing what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, the show does have an interesting motif of, of sort of women working behind the scenes to push their spouses or mates in certain directions.
I think I hit most of the main points. We did our hour. I don't see any other hands. I hope everybody who had a question or what have you, they got their hand up. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot there, a lot more I could say about it. You can check out Todd VanDerWerff. You can check out his report at Salon.com. It's Breaking Bad, the title of the report, Breaking Bad's Racial Politics, Walter White, Angry White Man. This was published back in September. It was right before the very last episode in the series. I do think he makes a lot of great points. In fact, I would say some of your paragraphs, I think this ties very nicely to what we have been seeing. And I think it even coincides, I guess we can end here. I think a lot of this show, it coincides nicely with President Obama being in the White House, which I think this has been on display in various forms with the Tea Party, even what we're seeing right now, the GOP shutdown or whatever, they slow down, however they want to phrase it, of the government. A lot of these angry white men, and this show started in 2008, almost simultaneously with the time President Obama was elected. It seems like this might have been something tapping into that white angst of, man, I'm entitled. I'm supposed to be in the White House. This is ours. We're owed something. We don't have something that we're supposed to have. It seems to coincide nicely with that. Do you think that could have factored into them producing this show and why it was so popular?
Well, I'll tell you what. When I was writing the piece, that was very much on my mind. That was one of the things that very the mentality of, I have mine, so why does anybody else need to have anything else? That whole political reality we're living through right now was very much on my mind every time I wrote about this show in the last season.
Wow. Right on. Again, check it out. You have other articles on Salon about Breaking Bad?
Not on Salon. I have several at the LA Times and at the AV Club, which is avclub.com.
Okay. Do they deal with the racial aspects of the show directly? Not so much as the Salon piece did, although there is one that I wrote right after the finale aired that was about the show, sort of examining political conservatism as it's evolved. So that gets into some of that territory. Okay. What's the title of that one, really quick? It's something I don't remember it offhand. It's something about how Breaking Bad ended the anti-hero show by introducing good and evil, something like that. Okay. Cool. We will check that out. Again, our guest, Mr. Todd VanDerWerff. Real pleasure to have him on the Crub. I think he said you can read some of his other material at www.avclub.com. I found it. It's www.avclub.com. Thank you for sharing a bit of your Thursday evening with us, Mr. VanDerWerff. Enjoy the dialogue. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Yes, sir. Take care. Context of White Supremacy. If anybody has any final thoughts they want to get in about Breaking Bad, we'll make sure to include those on this one. I doubt, since the series ended about 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, we can go ahead and get our final thoughts on this. Again, I do not want to encourage anyone to go back and watch that stuff. But as Dr. Welsing would say, reading is more important than watching television. Reading is more important than watching television. Definitely would not encourage anyone to feel like they got to go and watch this. I don't know if you're going to see anything that will produce the end of racism, white supremacy, but I will definitely say this is the best show that I have seen on television by far. Like, just watching this show, I have no interest in seeing Homeland, and I've seen Homeland. It does not compare. I've seen Game of Thrones. I've seen Dexter. I've seen the acting, the racism, white supremacy. It's right in your face. And the white women. That, I would say, is the key message. Mr. Fuller, when he says the racism is in everything, films, television shows, it's always there. If you're just watching a film looking for racism, you can pick anything. You can pick films or television shows at random. He says he picks films that have messages about life so you can learn things. I would say about Breaking Bad, the main thing that shines through when people insist that it is white male patriarchy is the man that's keeping us down. It's the white man who's doing a monumental error. The white women on this show, not only are they also making racist comments. Marie Schrader, at one point, she's talking about the car wash, and she says, that ethnic-looking one, the more ethnic-looking one right there, he's messing up. He's not doing it right. He's leaving streaks on the window when he's trying to drive. It happens over and over again. And not just that, but the way that they are able to control the behavior of others around them, just with the way that they use words. In fact, I will give you a scene. We'll do a commercial relating to the show or anything that you heard from my guest, racist suspect Todd VanDerWerff. You can get that in. But this scene, this happens repeat. I could have picked any number. This happens over and over again, where a white woman has done something incorrect. As he touched on before he left, Marie Schrader, she's married to a DEA agent, and she's a kleptomaniac. She's going to shoe stores and stealing things left and right. She makes up names and goes to houses that are for sale and pretends that she's going to buy, steals things from the houses. She does this all the time. She goes to a jewelry store and steals a tiara. Major theft, steals it and gives it to her sister at her baby shower. This, happens repeatedly where you're seeing these white women involved in criminal activity and the way that they will get out of trouble. Marie does it. She'll start crying. Plus, she's married to a DEA agent, so all she has to do is call her husband, and his police buddies get her out of the jam. She gets arrested, and she just calls her husband. They get her out of jam. She's got a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card because she's white and married to a DEA agent. Skylar, as I said, Marie gets her this shower. Skylar White, she attempts to take it back to the jewelry store, and they immediately recognize it as stolen merchandise. So they take her in the back room. We're going to call the police. We're prosecuting. She immediately goes into her, I am a white woman victim. What are you doing? You can't treat me like any old nigger shoplifter. Wait a minute, and I'm pregnant. She exploits it to the T. She begins crying, hyperventilating. I can't believe you're treating me like this, and they let her go. Don't call the police. Don't follow up. Nothing. They just let her go. This happens the end of season 4, or towards the end of season 4. This white woman has had an affair. Right? No moral people. Even that word, Mr. Fuller talks about that all the time. You cannot have morality in a system of injustice. And the ultimate injustice currently is the system of white supremacy, that it is malarkey to even talk about such a thing as morality under these conditions. But this white woman, she has an affair, right, to get back at Walt. The guy that she's having an affair with, he also is doing criminal activity. He's defrauding the IRS. He's done this for years with his business and find out he's defrauded them of like thousands, I think hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so Skylar White is saying, hey, wait a minute, I can't have you get in trouble because I was your accountant, my name is associated with your books, I could get in trouble. We could get in trouble. If they start digging around and finding too much, they could find out about all the criminal stuff we're doing. So I can't let you get in trouble. Watch the way that this white woman lies and just uses words to manipulate and control this situation. One of the key visual components of this scene that you're not seeing, she comes in and black blouse, very low cut, showing lots of cleavage, and she has on a gold necklace that's very long, and the gold piece is it's straddling her cleavage, basically. So it's drawing a lot of attention to her bust, right? Using sex to control and manipulate the situation, in my view. Just check. This is the white woman on display. We'll do the quick commercial, and then we'll hear if folks have any thoughts they want to share. Context of White Supremacy.
Have a look at the copies of the receipts to refresh my memory.
Take all the time you need, Mr. Babineaux. That's why we're here.
Oh, I am so sorry I am late. I got lost. Hey, Ted.
Sky.
Mwah. Whew, this building is so confusing. There are doors everywhere. Hi, you are?
Special Agent James Baccaris.
Ooh, special. Skylar White.
Ms. White, you are the accountant of record for many of these reports, is that correct?
Guilty as charged.
Well, then perhaps you can shed some light on this history of missing revenue.
Missing? No, it's there.
No. Revenue most definitely flowed through this company, but it's not all accounted for in your reports.
Huh. Let's take a look. Oh, well, you know, this account here, that is Mr. Keller's account, and Mr. Keller is an old friend of Ted's dad, and he always sends in an electronic payment, which personally I hate because I'm a real paper person, but Mr. Keller is one of those environmental people. So anyway, since there wasn't a physical check, I didn't enter it into the book, but the money's there.
Ms. White, you've read Section 61 of the IRC?
I did not follow what you just said.
How gross income for a business is defined. You're not allowed to do that.
Well, I think I am.
No, you're not.
Well, you know what they say about opinions, right? Everyone's got one. But seriously, I am.
Look, it doesn't matter if it's an electronic check or a paper check. Income is income. You're not allowed to not declare it.
When I input everything into the Quicken, nothing flashed red, so that's got to mean it's okay, right?
Quicken.
Mm-hmm.
You used Quicken to manage books for a business this size.
I did. Oh, do you guys use that here? Because it is the best. It's like having a calculator on your computer.
Ms. White, how did you get this job?
Oh, Ted hired me.
No. I mean your qualifications. What are your qualifications? Where did you get your training?
Oh, well, I haven't had any training per se. I've always been naturally good with numbers. Got a good instinct for them. Right, Teddy?
Right. This is all falling into place now. That's why I just have to ask. You're not managing accounts anywhere else, are you?
Right now? Nope. I'm a cashier at a car wash.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? CounterRacism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the Cows Radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a Cows episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the Cows Radio program, please visit my blog, justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he sit around going, you know, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she love me, that's all that matter. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, we'll be back tomorrow, Friday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, the 13th study session. Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns, closing, slowly but surely, closing on the conclusion. Tune in, should be constructive. I was talking about it yesterday with Dr. Cambon. I don't think he'd heard of the book, but I was telling him some of the Arrington High, Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission. I went back to research and caller in Alabama, since he did dial in to your question. He asked if that's the same thing as the White Citizens Council. It was what I responded last week. I got confirmation. I was correct. They are two separate organizations. It's not the same thing. They were two separate groups in the state of Mississippi. They had the same end goal, obviously, system of white supremacy, dominating non-white people, but they were two separate entities. They had different ways they were going about doing it. But, yeah, hopefully we can get more information on that. But all of that just coming from the study session number 13. Also, you heard in the commercial, Tribe Multimedia, non-white female, she did the artwork. It's on the Facebook page highlighting the anti-blackness, where we fight one another, victims fighting other victims for the entertainment of racist man, racist woman, racist child. That is a long time pastime. Even, in fact, when I look at that artwork, and I continue to look at it, it reminded me of Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison. That's how the book begins. You got the battle royal scene. We talked about that with Dr. Martin Kevorkian. People in this ring beating each other bloody and senseless for the entertainment of whites. Been doing this for a long, long time. I think there's even a similar scene in the film Forrest Whitaker won an Academy Award for, Last King of Scotland. Racist entertainment, a lot of similar patterns through the years and things that they do, ideas and concepts that they project. They want to make sure it gets lodged in your brain, concepts that they want to make sure get lodged in your brain that support the maintenance of white. Just quickly, I'll see if folks have anything they want to share. The number is 760-569-7676. The code 564-943#. If folks have anything they want to share about what they heard, the guest, or the show, you should get it in today. I doubt we will be doing any more shows specifically focused on Breaking Bad. But, yeah, if anybody has anything they want to get in, do so today. But just from that clip, you heard it right there. I think we hear this all the time. Let me get the sound clip in since I mentioned it.
If anyone is ignorant about racism, it's black people. Black people.
You heard it even in the clip. This notion that white people are ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. They're confused. They're not aware. It's my view, white people are very, very good at pretending, feigning ignorance. I think one of our racist guests from a few years back, great quote, she said, "You cannot wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep." And a job of pretending to be ignorant about racism, but just pretending to be ignorant, period, when it is to their benefit, when it will keep them from getting in trouble, will keep people from looking at them suspiciously. They do a phenomenal job of this, all the while priding themselves, in my view, most of the time bragging about how smart they are, how intelligent they are, how dumb and ignorant, mentally incompetent non-white people are, particularly black people. The bell curve, that sort of thing. They have written those sorts of books, and I feel like they drag out those kind of statistics all the time about their mental acumen while saying that, hey, these non-white people, particularly black people, are nincompoops. These people are not qualified. They're not capable of being in charge. They don't have the mental stamina to do this. And then when it's about time for them to get in trouble, wait a minute, I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. Excellent illustration in that little clip where Skylar White, she's an accountant. I went to school for this. I'm trained, but I'm white. I know how to come in and play the role and be deceptive. What other people are doing so that I don't get in trouble. You don't get in trouble, so that I can control what's going to happen. Phenomenal job. Not only, in my view, does she use her words, I think she uses it to her advantage. I'm a female. We've been trained. We just take it for granted. Yeah, it's white male patriarchy. That's what it is. It's white male patriarchy. They won't think of me as a threat. They won't think of me as a racist. I can use that to my advantage as well. They'll be less suspicious of me and the sex component. Like I said, in that scene specifically, she's wearing a skirt, and she's wearing a very low-cut black blouse. My cleavage gets you focused on my boobies, and all the while I'm using that to my advantage to manage, manipulate, control the situation, and get the outcome I want. White women, devastating at that sort of tactic, and you see that, in my view, you see that acted out repeatedly in this series from the white women. Lydia Rodar-Quayle, Marie Schrader, Skylar White, Jane Margolis. They got it. They understand. I'm a white woman. I'm supposed to be able to use my words and my tears and sex to manipulate. And I think white women, they understand that. They do that. I think if you just pay attention to white women on a regular basis, on your job or wherever you happen to be, school, classroom, whatever, you will see this carried out as well. Anywho, the folks that dialed in 3-557-1804, caller in Brooklyn. I actually got confused. I don't remember if it's Brooklyn or the Bronx. Your line should be open. If there are other folks who have thoughts that they want to share, you should dial, as I said, you should make it today. If you have anything you want to share on Breaking Bad, we might spend a whole lot of time on that if folks have things they want to relating to racism they want to get in, we can do that as well. But the folks that dialed in, your line should be open. I'll get hands if I see any.
Hello, Gus. You can hear me?
You're a little low. If you could speak up, please.
You can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Well, I never really saw the film before, but I think that it perhaps shows the unnatural lust white people have for race. And the characters in the film, you know, basically have sort of like the white superiority mentality. And it goes back to what Umar Johnson once stated inside a clip that I watched with him in it. He said that nothing about Hollywood is about acting. The films are more political. And it tends to have control over non-white people, especially the Negro psyche. And it's basically there to further white supremacy. It's very therapeutic. It's very therapeutic to white people and how they get by in everyday society. And I think that, you know, these films are just main examples. Just take the Django Unchained for an example. You notice how when white people tend to play these roles, they are very good at the acting. It's almost like they enjoy playing these roles because it kind of gives them a sense of what their ancestors once had control over when they was slave owners. And I think that when they play these roles, it almost kind of seems like it's realistic to them. You get what I'm saying, Gus?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, like I said, for this Breaking Bad specifically, for this television program, I think just to the end, and the whole time he had been a variety of excuses. Money, that's another key one where white people say, oh, it's not racism, it's classism. Kanye West said that last night on television. It's not racism anymore, it's classism. It's about money. They had been saying it the whole time in Breaking Bad. This is about money. I'm doing this so that I can get money to take care of my family. I'm doing this because I need money for my cancer treatment. This is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't have any money. I'm a lowly school teacher. And Dr. Campbell, he says that regularly. Money is camouflage for the white terrorism, and that shines through at the very end. I was not doing this for my family. I was not doing this for money. I was doing this because I liked it. And what did he like doing? You just look at the behavior that you've seen for these 5 seasons. Killing people, selling drugs, making drugs, lying to people, dissolving bodies in acid, all sorts of terroristic, psychopathic behavior. I enjoy this. I love this. This is my element, and I think white people, that's why the show was so popular. White people love this. Like they have, we did the program last time, they have little Lego meth labs. White people love this.
Yeah.
I think that white pathology is going to be 2 thumbs up. Go ahead.
I think that one thing I've noticed about them is that they're very sarcastic. And I think that after looking at after calling in tonight, it tends to let me know how much I need to pay more attention to white women because they're very sneaky, and I think that they tend to put on sort of they tend to be over feminine about a lot of things to get away with their sneakiness. You know what I'm saying? They're very sneaky.
Extremely so. That's why I said in this show, that is on display. Really, every white woman in this show, they are so cunning, treacherous, dangerous. The four main white women characters that I can think of, Lydia Rodar Quayle, Skylar White, Marie Schrader, Jane Margolis, they are phenomenal at deceiving people and being able to not just deceive people, but to manipulate people.
Yeah.
You know, I stole $5, but, you know, I was able to lie about it and get out of it. But being able to manipulate, take that lie and to use it to get people to do things or not do things according to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think the show, that's on display repeatedly, where the white women are able to, whether it's tears, sex, words, using emotions, whatever, using that to get people to do what they want or to not do what they want. Just phenomenal display of the cunningness, the shrewdness of the white woman. And that, in my view, that is not something that can be done with ignorant. No, you cannot be that shrewd and cunning and be ignorant. So we should have M1 with us as well.
Yes, hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening. I must say I've only seen like 2 episodes of the show, so not really much I can say on it, but the dynamics, you know, particularly of the treacherous white woman, I mean, you can see that on basically any show. I mean, like particularly shows, as you mentioned, Dexter, that Orange is the New Black, and one I recently started watching, Sons of Anarchy, where white woman she's having sex with, the lead white female characters having sex with Mexican characters are played by Kay Segal and Jimmy Smith, and there's a scene where the two of them, where they jump out of where she's in bed, and in 1 minute, she makes 3 racist comments just after sleeping with the guy. You know, so that treachery is just there. And also, you mentioned how the rise of the angry white man with this show, as well as tying into President Obama. There's something else that has been happening. I don't know if you've noticed all these white actors who are now all of a sudden conservative. You know, they were either liberal or kept their conservative views hidden, but now all of a sudden they just can't stay silent anymore. And they don't speak out against quote-unquote liberal Hollywood, liberal directors. No, it's all on President Obama. You know, that's their target. You know, and there's some white actors that are really egregious at this. Like, particularly, I'm just mentioning these names because you shouldn't know them, like the actor Nick Searcy of the show Justified. He's really the worst because he hides behind his adopted black son. So these are other things that we need to learn about.
Racist Hollywood did give us Governor of California, eventually 2-term President Ronald Reagan, as well as the Governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think they would both be examples of that trend, being white folks in Hollywood, being very conservative, supporting their white actors, entertainers who are coming out and making comment statements against President Obama or expressing quote-unquote conservative views. Particularly, I think now that you got the shutdown and people are talking in a more explicitly political manner about the government and what they like and don't like, I wouldn't be surprised to hear more overt statements like that.
Yeah, that is true. And I said that was just the point, you know, I wanted to make. So like be on the just listen for some of these people, you know. Anyone else can speak.
Any other folks had question, comment they wanted to get in?
What channel is this show on?
It just ended. It ran from 2008 until the last Sunday.
Oh, okay.
As The Walking Dead and... I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, AMC network, same network as The Walking Dead and I think Mad Men, whatever it is, same network. It's on Netflix now. I'm pretty certain that just based on the popularity of this show, that white people are probably going to make a massive box set in time for December 25th. Because they know a lot of people would probably want it with all the extra features and what have you. But, yeah, it was on.
Okay. What do you think about this comment? I was in the hospital the other day, and I saw one white man sitting with a group of what appears to be Mexican men. It was like 3 of them. And they was talking about the police. I think that something happened between the groups of men, and the white man out of all the Mexican men inside the group said, "Well, they're gonna believe me over you all." Do you suspect he was practicing racism?
Absolutely, and it seems like he was aware. I wonder, that goes back to what I was saying about this mythology, and it should be this dangerous deception when we have these false concepts. Dr. Kambon says, thinking that white people are ignorant, that they are not aware of what it means to be white, or that they are not aware that we are in a system globally of racism, white supremacy, and nothing could be further from the truth. It sounds like he was just, hey, I'm white, we're in a system of racism, and I can say whatever I want. People will believe me much more readily than they will you all, because you're not white. And I think most white people understand that. I think even by the time the average white person, they understand that. Hey, I'm a white person. Even if it's me, as that clip I played talking about the hazing going on at Garfield High School here in Seattle, where these white children were going and hazing other students. They went to the University of Washington, and they were hazing, and they were taking off other people's clothes and covering their bodies in shoe polish. That's a Dr. Wellesley moment right there, and throwing eggs at them and all this other crazy stuff. The thing that they were trying to tar Florida A&M and say, oh, you... It was big news last week. And finish my point real quick. A black instructor came in, and he was like, hey, what are you all doing? Cut that out. You're not supposed to be doing this. And one of these white children called him a nigger. Just that right there, they understand. By the time they're 15, I can say whatever I want. It's more likely I will be believed than you, because I'm white and we're in a system of racism. Go ahead.
When will Miss Welsing be back on the show?
She was August and September. I was thinking about perhaps later this month, early part of November. I know it had been so much activity had been happening in the D.C. area that I was curious to hear what her views were on the shooting that happened to Miss Carey last week, and the Aaron Alexis situation, and the black male set himself on fire, as well as the whole shutdown and how that's disproportionately impacting non-white people. I definitely have been thinking just to see what she had to say about all that. We'll see. Maybe later this month. We'll see.
Okay, I have to speak to her. I always wanted to talk to Miss Wilson, but I just think that the message is out in the films. You know, I think that most people tend to get the wrong impression when they watch movies. I think that movies was always political. And it goes back to what Umar Johnson was talking about. So, that's all I had to say.
We had a bit more time. I know the person, when we had the program previously talking about this show, and they asked into the archives or what have you, and they maybe were watching some of the shows, and there's a scene where a plane or two planes crash over the White household, and bodies are falling in their yard and all this other craziness, and a teddy bear falls in their pool, and one of the eyes from this teddy bear comes off, and this becomes like a keepsake that the main character, Walter White, he holds on to. He has it in his house, and it pops up. And one of the callers had asked about that eyeball, if it was symbolic or if it represented anything. And I had thought about it, and I was saying, yeah, I think it goes like this. I likes doing all of this. He indirectly causes this plane or these planes to crash. I think like 300 people die or something crazy like that. He indirectly contributes to this. And at the end, he says, I liked it. I liked all this carnage. You got body parts raining down on my house, on the whole city, really, where the whole neighborhood has got debris and arms and all this other stuff just scattered all throughout. Police have to come and get all this stuff. But, yeah, I liked it. It was great. We killed a 10-year-old, you know, dissolved his body in acid, too, got rid of it. They got wanted posts or missing posts. It was great. Loved it. Selling drugs, killing people was great. Loved it. Wonderful stuff.
So, basically, by all what's going on, can you honestly believe that white people still hate us?
I mean, for me, I don't look at it as hate. I just look at it as we're supposed to dominate. We're supposed to be in control. That white people I'm talking about. That's the way that I think about it, the way that I work on. We don't see non-whites as human. We don't think of them as humans. They're not supposed to be treated in a humane manner, and we're supposed to dominate them forever. Now, do I think you have a lot of white people that do hate us? Absolutely. But just in terms of how I view racism, white supremacy being war, I mean, it's just about as long as we dominate at the end of the day, as long as we dominate and control these niggas, that's just what it is. But, you know, I just don't, and that's just my view. I know a lot of people, and I would even point out Mr. Fuller, I think that is one of the quotes that he has on the back of the book. I think he says it's one of those that he has, people should just think, hate black people is not because they're black, it is because white people are not black. That's the one that he gives for people to think on. And I think there could be quite a bit to that, even going back to what I said about that anecdote from the high school where these white students were taking all their clothes off and covering themselves in black shoe polish. But, yeah, I don't get a whole lot or use the term hate when talking about it. It's just, at the end of the day, it's just about war, dominating, mistreating, abusing, and making sure we're in control worldwide. But it's incorrect, what you're saying.
Do you remember when you did that show with that Asian woman, and you two was basically talking about how white men tend to think Asian women want them? I don't know if you still, because I saw that show early in the archives, and you asked her, was she proud of being Asian? And she said yes, because the racism that black people receive is far more targeted upon. I remember listening to that clip early in the archives. Do you remember that?
Which Asian female? Do you remember her name? Or
I forgot her name. It was about 2 months ago I looked at that clip. And she stated that, it was a clip that you done when you was interviewing her.
Was it, do you know if that was a program from this year or what? Because I feel like...
I think it was like last year.
Trying to go back.
In other words, I'm trying to say that racism is more predominantly targeted on blacks than other non-whites who are non-black. I think that, racism tends to be more blunt on black people. I know racism is used against other non-black people who are non-white, but I think that it's predominantly used against black people.
I would agree. I think I've been saying that pretty consistently throughout the time we've been doing the program, but that's the whole reason I make that distinction between black people, non-white, non-black people, because I think darker individuals classified as black, I think they're treated worse. I think there's an abundance of evidence it's one of those. I've already kind of had my final thought about all of that and moved. That's one that I know there are a couple people that don't agree and all that, which is fine. I make errors. I could be incorrect, but yeah, I've already had my final conclusion about that, and I think it's evidenced every day, just in the way that black people are treated, the way that they're talked about. You even referenced the book Two-Faced Racism, written by two whites, racist suspects, Dr. Joe Fagan, one of the co-authors. He's a guest on the program. He had white students collect journals. He said that I think they got like 1,000 entries from these white students, and a lot of it dealing with racist jokes. Like 75% of the racist jokes were directed at black people. I would say that another example right there. So, yeah, that's the conclusion I've come to. Black people, they are treated much worse. I think that's another one of those incorrect concepts where it's almost a reflex where they will say, well, I don't think there's a racial hierarchy. Yes, there is. Whites have set up a racial hierarchy. Dr. Weldon, when she says black get back, yellow
stick around, no, yellow, mellow, brown.
Child nursery rhyme, that evidences the white hierarchy, or the racial hierarchy, the white supremacist hierarchy. The darker you are, the worse you're going to be treated. So
there's this clip on YouTube, and the clip it depicts. It's like a minute and 3 seconds long. There was this white male. He injected himself with melanin for 3 months, and he turned real jet black. And on the picture, I noticed how he stuck his tongue out, because I don't know if you ever, he stuck his tongue out, and he put it, right underneath his nose to make his lips look bigger than what it was. You have to see
I wouldn't.
It's
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
It's called White Man Inject Himself with Melanin for 3 months. And if you look at the video, you see how dark he has gotten from taking the melanin for like 3 months, because they created, like, it's in Europe, but they created like this little I forgot what it's called, but it's like melanin shots. You can inject it in yourself to protect your skin from the sun. Well, what white people use to protect their skin from the sun, and it's called melanoma or something. I think that's what it's called. It's in Europe, but a white man, he injected himself too much. He got real dark from it, and he took a picture of himself. I think it all goes back to this obsession with skin color.
Person that dialed in, this is Praz. Your line should be open, Praz.
Greetings, callers and Gus and Justice. I don't know if this is just my phone, but like when you were speaking, you kept cutting out. Like you would cut out every minute or so. I don't know if anyone else on the line was noticing that, or if it's just my phone.
Yeah, I noticed. I thought it was just my phone, though.
Yeah, the audio would cut out every now and then, so we couldn't actually hear everything that you had to say.
I will check on that.
Oh, also, Gus, I know you've read 12 Years a Slave, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Did you? I just finished this recently because I was, preparing for the movie that's coming out next week. Did you ever doubt the authorship of the book while you were reading it?
I didn't. That could be.
Okay.
But I didn't. Did you? Did you have suspicions?
I don't know, because I don't know. There's a common theme in like even with the butler. I saw this, like there's always a thing about trying to see the one good white person. And I think that there were certain slave masters that he had. I don't know if it was one or two that he praises them. And I was just wondering, like, if I know that book was probably published in the 1800s. I don't know if he had to write it like that in order for it to get published. And then I just wonder, about the film, and if the film is going to sort of be like, it'll be hopefully accurate, but will it be like The Butler again, where, we're basically having, like in Breaking Bad, you have the refined and the unrefined white supremacists, and so we're supposed to hold out hope for a refined white supremacist that does the right thing, so-called does the right thing. So I was just wondering about how that film's going to be adapted and whether, how constructive it's going to be.
I did have those concerns about what would be accurately transferred to the film. I thought, and that's going to be the next book for the study session, whenever we get done with Warmth of Other Suns, 12 Years a Slave. But I thought this is so fascinating because this is a black person who was not born with the comments that he makes about these white enslavers, the comments that he makes about some of these white people in general. It was fascinating to me, just like, wow, seeing how quickly somebody who wasn't even born into the system of slavery is apparently adapting to it and just going along with it, and even saying that, oh, there's such a thing as a good enslaver and this master is better than that. I mean, it was fascinating to me. Now, as you said, this could be some fakery. White people could have wrote it, but I also thought, hey, this totally dominated, and you just adjust. I think Dr. Welsing, where she says Stockholm syndrome or whatever, where you're being dominated, and you just go along with it, and you end up just looking for a terrorist that's a little bit better, a little bit nicer, not quite as abusive to you. That stuck out to me big time. It definitely could be, as you said, where white people have just been deceptive and maybe wrote this or did some ghostwriting, but it also, I thought, could just be a response, unfortunately, to the system that we're in.
Yeah. I want to share with you guys, I had an opportunity to attend a class, and in this course that I'm taking, I'm the only non-white person there, period, the only black person. And we're studying Greek philosophy. And, for a moment there, I had to remind myself that they're not there to really teach me, because when I, just like in this program, we ask questions and we get an answer, at least according to what people think the answer is. But when I was in the class, when I would ask a question, the question would be reflected back to me, and then the question wasn't answered, and then the teacher proceeded to use various terms that I had to go look up in the dictionary. So I just had to remind myself, the reason why this teacher is here is to confuse me rather than teach me. And so it was very sobering, but, I had to remember where I was.
Answer, and we just turn around and ask you your question back. Did you feel like these were questions that were going about race directly or indirectly, or were you just trying to get information about, this is Greek studies, right?
Yeah. We're reading this story, it's called Antigone. And in this story, I guess, there's this guy whose name is Creon. And basically he gets into power because these two brothers, Eteocles and Polynices, were fighting. One brother ends up, they both end up killing each other. And Polynices, because he left the city and came back with an army, they basically put his body out to rot so that it'd be an example for everybody. And so the teacher asked me what I thought about that, or asked the whole class. And I said, well, to me, that's a warning for anyone that is going to challenge him or his power. They're going to be not only disrespected in death, but even after death. They're going to let the dogs eat them. And so when I said this, they just look at me, and then she calls on somebody else. And I think that was an accurate explanation of it. But it was just, I was just dismissed. That point that I made was dismissed, and I was like, whoa. I forgot where I was for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then a flurry of words, she would say, oh, these are extant texts and oxymoron, and it's a pious act, and it was germane, and that was pragmatism. And she just use all these terms, and as I'm writing down the terms, she's looking at me write down, taking notes, and she is getting irritated that I'm writing notes because I don't understand what she means. And if I feel like if I ask her a question, oh, can you explain that term? It's I feel like I'm going to be slowing the class down. So I was like, here's the brain trashing starting already. It was quite an experience.
That's another one, I think. And I've heard some white people say that is a purposeful tactic of intimidation, to use terms that you don't understand or just to try to flex their vocabulary. To be like, oh, see, you're incompetent. You don't even, your vocabulary is not up to par.
Yeah, whereas, I thought about
anything. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I was just saying, I was thinking about Mr. Fuller, how he explained that everything should be, education everything should be made simple so that anyone can understand. And I think with the current system that we have under the system of racism, white supremacy, there's an attempt to make everything as complicated. I remember the instructor saying, it's not that simple. There's so many other factors. And I notice, like, when we talk to so-called educated people about racism, they'll say it's so complicated and there's so many factors. But really, it isn't very complicated at all. It's just racism, white supremacy. And a lot of people try to complicate it so that we're confused, but it's not complicated at all. So I just have a unique perspective on it now. If I went into the class thinking that I was going to learn something or that an instructor is going to be helpful, I think that the brain trashing would have actually worked on me.
Of white culture, white supremacist culture. That's in Breaking Bad, where they chop off the male's head and put it on a turtle out in the desert for people to look at. It's in countless films, books. I think that's in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. It's in Apocalypse Now. It's in Lord of the... it's countless. White people do that all the time. In Isabel Wilkerson, The Warmth of Other Suns, where they've hung a black person and keep the body out. That's a part of white terrorism, integral part of white terrorism, to make sure that there's just total tackiness, terrorism through and through. The other people that dialed in, your line should be open as well. The caller in Seattle and the caller on the Free HD line, both lines should be open.
Greetings. Can I be heard?
Can hear both of you. Let's do the female first.
Oh, hello. I was listening to you a few minutes ago. You were talking about Two-Faced Racism by Joe Fagan. I actually just recently got the book at the library. It actually, for some reason, took them at least 5 weeks to get it. I don't know why it took them so long. I was going to get it at Rutgers Library, but I'm not allowed to get it because I'm not a Rutgers student. But what was interesting, I went to the library and got the book, and when I went to the library, I had told her I had a book on hold, and it was a white female that actually checked my library card and went and got the book for me, and I had it on hold. And I did notice that it was like in a white envelope, which I've never seen before, because anytime I get a book from the library, or if it's coming from another library where it's on hold, and, even, there's some books that got on racism, but I guess maybe the title was too, I don't know, maybe explicit for them. They put it in a paper bag. Not a paper bag, but like an envelope. So I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, the book is in here. I'm like, why is it in an envelope? And she's like, oh, she didn't, and it's weird, she didn't even tell me why. So, okay, here we go, and I'm asking her, and she doesn't ignore my question. And I was like, excuse me, why is this in an envelope? I don't understand. Is it because the book is about racism? And at that point, they all kind of got quiet, and she didn't know what to say to me. So I was like, okay, give me the book. I took it out of the envelope and took it. I was like, I'm not taking this envelope. I was like, I didn't know what to say at the moment. I was just like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Because I've gotten other books there with them involving racism. I noticed they give me weird looks, and so it's mostly white people there. They give me weird looks, and they're looking at me, and they're looking at the books that I get and stuff, and they're just, very nosy and just looking at me all fine. But I've never had that experience. That was very interesting.
Fascinating. Wow.
I've never heard of a library doing something like that. I was just like, this is ridiculous. I was like, wow, okay. But I went home and read it. Went home and read the book. very interesting. I agree with what you were saying. Like you said, 75% of the jokes were made towards black people. I noticed the jokes are more violent as well, I noticed, towards black people. And I did notice there was a section where they did talk about where a couple of college students would be walking at night and they'll see, like, they could be walking to a club or bar, they'll see, like, a group of black guys and, like, the females. They talk more about the dynamic with white females and black males and how they have this fear of them, and they just talked about different accounts, which I thought were pretty interesting. But that's pretty much how far I got in the book. I think that's up to chapter 2. I haven't gotten up to the other chapters yet. So, very interesting book.
On Gus's reading list, I do recommend that. It was written by racist suspects, but I think it does have a lot of constructive information. They have an explicit section on the restaurant racist code and how intricate white people have worked it out for restaurant racism, why you shouldn't be eating out, and just lots of great info. I recommend that book pretty frequently that non-white people should read. And I've had that happen too, getting books from the library on racism or just getting books that have constructive information. That's something that white people think non-white people, black people aren't supposed to be reading. It's like, what's this nigga doing with this? I've had that happen repeatedly, and I've heard other non-white people with similar experiences where they're trying to get something constructive, trying to learn, doing some reading, and the white person, oh my God, you can read? You're reading it? Man, you need to go talk to standard operating procedure. Squiggers, if anyone's reading that, and the nickname they have for them, Squiggers, man.
Oh, man, that's
funny. Caller in Seattle, you should be with us as well. Do you have any comments you want to get in? Caller in Seattle.
Greetings, all. I was researching about the recent South Park episode about Zimmerman and all that, and that was pretty interesting. Racist, of course, but and I found something somebody said on Twitter that remarked about first South Park and now American Horror Story. It's a bad night to be a black person or something like that. I was like, what's American Horror Story, or what's up with this show? I'd heard about it, but I'd never watched it. And it's, more witch and witchcraft type shows, but they're taking a real character, a real person from history, and as a character in the show called Delphine LaLaurie, who some white socialite female in New Orleans in the 1800s who ended up, torturing and killing a whole bunch of her slaves. And I watched the episode or skimmed through it, and they have her cutting out pancreases to smear on her face to keep her young, and black males, and then put a minotaur head on them or a bull head on them. And I don't know what time of the night this show comes on. I think it's probably like 9 or something on maybe Channel 4 or ABC. And it was just I wouldn't recommend watching it, but just looking researching into the history of this character or this real person, it makes me think of Halloween, which is coming up, and and how somebody's more than likely going to be this character, or a lot of people are going to be this character for Halloween, or be Walter White, exemplifying all the same killing and everything. So just thought they should put that out there.
I definitely agree with you on that.
I'm looking for a lot of white people to be Trayvon Martin for Halloween. And George Zimmerman. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to get out the subject, but I wanted to go back to what I was saying earlier when the guest was on. It seems to me though, but have y'all noticed that? Like what I was asking about how I think in Hollywood, black people will be made a mockery of anyway, regardless of how they do it or whatever. They just use different techniques to do it. But the move to, well, I know everybody know this because a lot of people talking about it, to make the black male more feminine. But do y'all think they do that because they saw when they was like doing the 90s, like doing Boys in the Hood, South Central, Men's Society, so on and so on, the black male kind of became like a sex symbol, like with Tupac, Snoop, on and on.
I think it's all about destroying the black male and female image together as far as relationship-wise, because it all goes back to, sterilization of the black population. Because I noticed how in some movies the black male tends to be gay and the black female tend to be in a relationship with the white man and stuff like that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I remember, like, when I was growing up, I didn't hardly see too many black gay males on TV. I'm probably not thinking correctly, but I just don't remember any. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like they did that I could be wrong. Let me say it first. I could be wrong because it's just an idea. But it seemed like I seen the whole down low movement coming first, and then after the down low movement, that's when I started seeing a whole lot of black males in Hollywood be, portrayed as homosexual or whatever, anti-sexual. Let me say that.
Can I say something? Hello?
Makes me... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, hello? Oh. It's interesting you say that because...
Oh, sorry.
Now it's interesting. They do present the black males as being homosexual. They were doing it in the 90s at the time, but I also, obviously, you notice with these films and with the rap music, they also presented them as being dangerous. So at the time during the 90s, a lot of white people were scared of black males because of the rap music that was out, the videos, and the movies. So not only were they portraying them as homosexuals in the 90s, but also as like a threat as well. But now, for some reason, you don't see a lot of that, the gangster type stuff as much as you did in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like that was like a big thing in the 90s, and a lot of white people were scared of black men because of all this stuff. But then now it's like most people are kind of like, like whatever with them. They're like not a threat now for some reason. Like you even see with some rap music, a lot of the rappers are kind of just not. It wasn't as. And I know there's some rappers who are complaining about how there's like no gangster rap music anymore. Everything's all There's rappers who are singing, and there's rappers who are complaining that it's not that it's not whatever hip hop was, which I don't think it is, but it's not gangster like how it was in the 90s. All of it's kind of like more feminine now. So I don't know, that's interesting.
I remember Heavy D made a statement. You go ahead.
Oh well, I was just gonna add on that it seems to go in cycles, so that like if you had the metrosexuals now. Before you had the androgyny with Prince in the early 80s, and then you had the, bell bottoms and flares and, no place in your pants to put your items, no pockets. It just seems that they go in cycles almost with the music. But then, it'll go back to the rough look, and that'll be play right into the hands of getting locked up. So they'll use both of them.
It isn't a coincidence that the black population stayed at 12% in America. You know what I'm saying? It was always about destroying like the black image, and and they presented it a lot in movies. Just like I don't know if a lot of you all see like fitness products. Most of the times you'll see a black man standing next to a white woman. Or you'll see like a black woman standing next to a white man, because I think that America's afraid of black men and women standing together strong. So I think that there's a reason why they present films like this, like the way they do.
And I kind of agree with you. That's why I noticed if you look at more of the most of the black females who get talk shows, from my knowledge, they're all single. Like you know, they don't have any children. Queen Latifah, Oprah Winfrey, Tyra Banks, the girl who used to do radio, I think Wendy Williams, I don't know about her. I know she used to be married, but I don't really know much about her, does she have any children, but I noticed that as well.
She's married. But I think that when it goes to black women, I think that other races of women tend to be intimidated by the black female's beauty. You know, like when black women really take care of themselves, they wear their hair natural and stuff like that. It's been from my experience that they've been the most beautiful women on the planet. And I notice how when other races of women tend to look at black women, you know, they tend to feel threatened by the beauty. And, you know, in some cases they get called mixed. So you must be mixed with something and stuff like that. Or when you see a black female standing next to a black guy, you know, standing strong and, you know, just clean cut, you know, walking with self-pride in general, that's a huge problem to white America, you know. And I think that that's the reason why Gloria Steinem, who was the poster girl of the feminist movement, targeted the black community because they wanted to destroy the black male and female relationship. That's why you have so many cases today where black women and black men tend to have so much hostility against each other. And I think that was well planned, you know.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
We can hear you.
I was actually watching a YouTube clip. I think it was called Stephen Fry on American Prison Facts. I believe it's a British show, and they were talking about, you know, like the partiality of American prisons. And I'm not shocked, but I don't know, the fifth is just interesting, and it's just a shame. Just, you know, it's just a sad reality, unfortunately. And oh lordy, there's one statistic, well, a couple, where they said that no society in history has imprisoned as many people as America.
That's true.
Yep. And they said they were shocked by, you know, the black male ratio in prison. They were like, oh my God. Yeah, I was watching the video. It was mostly white people that were sitting there talking about it. They're like, oh my God, 1 in 9 black males are in prison. There are more 17-year-old black males in prison than in college. I mean, 5% of the world are Americans. 25% of all prisoners are Americans. And then another interesting thing was America prohibits importing goods made through forced labor or prisoners. Yet American prisons produce 100% of all military helmets, ammunition belts, bulletproof vests, 90% of domestically used paints, 36% of home appliances, 21% of office furniture, which allows America to compete with factories in Mexico. Basically saying America has successfully reinvented the slave trade. And we all know most of those people are non-white people that are working and doing that work. So,
Kwame Kilpatrick.
Yeah.
I just said Kwame Kilpatrick. He was the former mayor in Detroit, black male. He got convicted earlier this year. He was sentenced today to 28 years of... White people were various fraud, mail fraud, extortion, various things. It was lots of. They trumped up a lot of charges. Or I can't even say that, but they convicted him of many, many things. At any rate, he got sentenced today to 28 years, and white people were just overjoyed, and all of their tacky, racist comments were flying out, and they were bragging about putting him to work once he is in greater confinement. It was a white person. He's going to be sentenced, and he's going to do his time in Texas, and he was mayor of Detroit, and a white person was sad, and they were saying, the white person was saying, I wanted him to be in prison in Detroit so that I could be the first person to get a license plate that said, Kwame Kilpatrick made my license plate. That was one of the comments that was up today.
That's terrible. It's a shame.
Yeah, I think they're probably on the late night shows or whatever going to recycle the jokes they make about young Asian girls making all the consumer electronics. They can just flip those for Kwame, and make fun of it. Oh, and Charles Taylor wasn't. I think he got 50 years today or yesterday. A former leader of Liberia.
Oh.
Well, they had a twofer today. But I was thinking about all the, just in general what everyone's saying about the media portrayal, and also about how media is consuming so much more of our lives, and we're seeing less of, people are just on those phones and not really seeing people. So it's like when people think of, we got the black community because we got black media, and I see black folks on TV and the news, but that is, it's that much more important for them to sew that up, because they're already physically more disconnected.
Hello? Oh, am I?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but I know in one of my college classes, they talked about, I took a class on marketing and advertising, and teacher talked about different advertisements for different demographics. She didn't really get into race, but I know that's one of them, besides, age. And what I have noticed on TV, I don't know if you've noticed, but depending on what show is on, this could be during the day, nighttime, even on particular channels, they'll have a show on a channel. It could be, I don't know, it could be a Tyler Perry show or something, and sometimes they'll throw in commercials that are targeted towards black people because they know they're watching it. I don't know if you've seen that. And they're usually racist. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
So are you saying they're
I do.
more racist black portrayal?
Yeah, but the assumption of what black people would automatically buy, or even commercials, they'll have commercial with a black family, and it's not, they do it with white people too, but you don't really see commercials where it's a black woman and a white person. It'll just be a black family, white family. They kind of, it's just targeted. And even BET, obviously BET is just, everything on there is targeted. It's just and obviously the person who obviously owns BET is white, but everything on there is just targeted toward black people, and it's just so annoying to sit there and watch a commercial. And even CNN, it's amazing. CNN's a trip, because if you look at CNN and Fox News, the way they target it, they know mostly Democrats are watching, and majority of Democrats are black people, so they'll have stuff on there for black people, certain commercials, maybe an insurance commercial if you need this, financial help or whatever the hell. Maybe Fox News obviously is going to have stuff on there regarding, I don't know, farming or whatever the hell maybe. I just think it's interesting how some people don't even realize that these commercials, because they know who's watching the shows, some people don't even realize that these commercials are on there because they're targeting you. Like the certain companies that fund the commercials for even CNN. And sometimes they're the same companies that fund the commercials for Fox News, but see, nobody notices that. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
I kind of know. Do you see a lot of McDonald's commercials doing that too?
Yes, I noticed there's McDonald's commercials that come on when there's like a show, like there's a show like a Tyler Prairie or something, or even like I said, even BET. They're gonna have everything on that channel. Everything on that channel is targeted towards black people. MTV, now see, it's funny, MTV, they'll do some more stuff for white people. And as you know, the history of MTV didn't have any black artists or musicians until Michael Jackson came on there. Now, I heard there was some controversy on why he really was on there. But from what I know, MTV was racist and didn't allow any black artists on there. And then they had MTV Yo Raps. Right after Michael Jackson became successful on there, then that's when they had MTV Yo Raps. They had Prince, because they mostly were just playing rock. They didn't play any hip-hop music or nothing. And that was when hip-hop was really coming out at the time. They're like, we're not having this on our channel. And then they didn't, I don't know, I think BET, I don't know if BET, was BET out at that time? In the early 80s?
I think in a limited manner, but it got bigger probably around 86, 7.
Yeah, that's what I figure. I'm like, I never watched. I know I watched BET like going into like maybe the early like millennium, like 2000, 99. But I do know MTV has a history of being racist, and you know they still obviously are. They still do it now. You know, I mean with the Teen Mom show, I mean there's not many black people in that show. You know, they had their versions. It's hilarious. They had their different versions of. They had Laguna Beach, then they had Baldwin Hills. You know those two shows or no?
Yeah, I see. Baldwin.
Yeah, Laguna Beach, all white people. Baldwin Hills, black people on BET. Just like they're like, oh, black. It's amazing how they. And the Baldwin Hills are like black people who live in the rich area in the same state, but they live in a different part. But they're rich, and then you have the white people. You know, you just never see that mix when they have shows of it. So it's a shame because now that you got teenagers watching this, and they're learning that, you know, okay, this, and it's not just having anything to do with mixing. It's more of, you know, this is a portrayal of like black people, and you don't see black people here, so don't, you know. It's interesting how they target people, like the teenagers when they watch shows like that to have like views, you know. But,
Alabama was talking about McDonald's, and made me think of, you know, the I'm loving it, you know, and just like they really not, you know, as far as I, you know, knew from the past, did you say white folks, you know, whatever, they don't have soul, you know, they didn't say love to their kids, I love you, nothing like that. When a lot of people didn't do that, but we go for that love, and it's not loving, it's loving. With no G, you know, so you know, stick it in your head. So,
how about Burger King? What's theirs? Theirs is have it your way. They have these interesting things. Like what, really?
And what I noticed is that all the fast food is being pushed on like black. I could be wrong, but all the fast foods, from what I'm noticing, is being pushed on black, but then when it's come to eating healthy and being on your vegetables and things like that, is more centered toward Caucasian. It's more marketed to them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like every time you see a chicken commercial, always show black people as the main characters.
Yep. Yep.
Like black people are already having problems getting roles in Hollywood. I think that, you know, if there was ever a main role for a Church's Chicken movie, they'll pick nothing but black people to put in it.
Yep. Yep, that's true.
I think the reason you don't see Church of Chicken commercials is the same reason you don't see cigarette commercials. Because they know it's deadly, just like Newport cigarettes.
They did have Gus selling fried chicken in Breaking Bad. That I didn't bring it up just because we talked about it before, but really that's the most black character on Breaking Bad, and he's selling fried chicken.
Yeah, I know when they do the ad programming for sports, they usually have it as that trope that you mentioned earlier with the always helping white folks. So they'll have, the white fan, fat white fan on the shoulders of LeBron James or Kevin Durant or whatever. Or, the bagger pants hole scenario, helping them out. But that's on the sports programming because they know they're targeting, slouch kind of white guy. But he's not a slouch at all. He's getting busy at work.
I think I see a lot of, military, Army commercials as well, targeting black people. I feel like they have a lot of endorsements to come join the services on program. I think that's something I've seen over the years as well.
I agree. I find it to be highly annoying.
You guys ever seen Precious the movie?
Yep.
I still have not seen it.
I don't think that movie was Oscar worthy. I just think that Monique won an Oscar because it fit the stereotype of white America. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Training Day, same thing.
I think that's probably all the Oscars. That's probably all.
Your phone breaking up again.
It's not, I feel like, yeah, I know. I'll see if I can correct that. It's not, I feel like any of the awards that white people give out, it's not so much that this is quality work, it's that this benefits the system of white supremacy. Like, I feel like Breaking Bad, tons of Emmys. I think Walter White's character, he won the Emmy for Best Actor in a Drama 3 consecutive years. That's unprecedented. That only happened one other time in the history of the Emmys. And ironically, it was Bill Cosby in I Spy 40 years ago who did that, won that award 3 consecutive years. But I think that's the case. Any film, Rocky, I think, got nominated for acting great. Rocky, I think, I don't know if it won, but it got nominated for Best Picture. Not that it's a great film, but that it supports the system of racism, white supremacy. I think that's any awards, not just film, but any awards that white people get out. That's the way that I think this benefits the system of racism, white supremacy. Nobel Peace Prize, same thing. It's not that this person necessarily did something that warrants recognition. Whatever this person did, it benefits our system of domination.
Hello, can I be heard?
I can say too. Yeah, you can speak.
I was just going to add to that. I'm not sure if many people are aware, but the theater circuit, there's a lot of plays that go on that deal with issues like there was a recent one in Chicago called The Mountaintop. There was another one called Race at the Goodman Theater. And, I've been going to these plays for the past year, and I noticed the audience is maybe 95% white. And the subject matter in the plays, it's really sort of like a degradation or brain trashing of black people. And there's a lot of white people that go to these plays, and they're laughing and yucking it up. And on stage, the actors are given these scripts where they have to pretty much caricature black dialect and a stereotype. So it's like Precious on the stage. And recently, they had a play called The Mountaintop in Chicago dealing with Martin Luther King. and it was a total disgrace. They had him using profanity. They dealt with his philandering. It was nothing about Dr. King or his legacy, but it was pretty much a brain trashing of his legacy and message. And you know, there were a lot of Caucasians there just laughing, knee-slapping laughter. And I just can't ever think of them making a play about John F. Kennedy or Robert Kennedy that would show, you know, all of the negativity that they show in a play that's supposedly about Dr. King. Yeah, they would never do that. So in the play circuit, there's a lot of anti-blackness, and because a lot of black people don't go to plays, maybe we don't have the resources to pay like $50 or $60 for a seat. This is also a form of racial theater. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that in the play circuit.
I don't go to plays currently, but I think what you're saying about being priced out of being in the audience, that goes for pretty much near anything. I mean, it requires money. So, you know, people who, you know, participate in the arts, they got it in the back of their mind. They're like, okay, this is, you know, hopefully they're thinking that this is a exercise in, you know, selling myself.
I have a question. Have any of you guys seen The Lion King?
Yeah.
The play. Well, that's another one, and there's a lot of white people who go to that. And I hear from white people all the time. They're like, I love this play. It's so great. You got to go see it. I'm like, I'll pass. Because I've seen the Disney movie, but it's like so, like when I went to a concert in New York over by the Best Buy Theater, and it was lines and lines, and it's the most sold out show in New York City for a play. Lines and lines of white people. And I'm like, well, Lion King, what was that about again?
Africa.
Yeah. Like, deal. And I was like, where black people at? I don't see not one black person. And then they have the black actors on the stage, so they're portraying, you know, African, you know, culture and stuff. But, you know, white people, I don't know what their reaction to is. And not only that, they're bringing the little kids with them. So I'm like, oh, Lordy.
I think it's all about making themselves feel secure with themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because white people, what I've noticed about them, they're very insecure. They're very insecure about other people and themselves, especially about black people.
The Lion King is the one actual play that I have seen that one. That's the only one. But in that, it seems like it's just putting the African accent on the play, black play, quote, quote, that they would see otherwise, where it's just because in the accent I could barely hear, kind of, or maybe it's the acoustics, I could barely hear the setup to the joke, but then the end joke would be like, you fool, stop it, da-da-da, you know, and it would just be like it was just, like, you know, I could hear it coming from somebody American, black as well.
And speaking about that insecurity, one of the most just clearest forms of how insecure white supremacists are is a television show they have called True Blood. I never seen heterosexual white males so insecure of a heterosexual black male in my life. It's like the only black male they got on that show is antisexual. They had one heterosexual black male on the show, but he was killed by the so-called white stud or whatever like that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that his girlfriend, the heterosexual black male's girlfriend on that show, had a crush before and after the black male was killed on the guy who killed that black male. Did y'all see that show?
Yeah, I've seen the show. I think I know what episode you're talking about. Yeah,
I think his name was Ed.
Yeah.
And was killed by the brother of the white girl who supposed to be so special. And the black girl that Ed was going with had a crush on the white male who killed Ed. And I thought that was so like clear. To me that was like, it was just so clear what they was really trying to do. It's just how insecure they really are. You know what I'm saying?
Let's take
and then they made the black female into a lesbian after that. I think that's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah, maximum brain tracking.
No, that show's in New Orleans,
for
correct?
Example. Any of y'all ever seen Scandal?
No. Mm-mm.
I refuse
Isn't
to watch
Kerry
it.
Washington?
She got nominated for an Emmy or her role there. She didn't win, but she got nominated for an Emmy for that role.
The Negro Bedouin syndrome.
Oh.
And it's like every time I don't really watch BET like that. I just turn it on for my little cousins. It's like every time the commercial turn on, it always show that little clip of her hugging up against him and kissing him and everything. And every time.
That's sad. I don't know if I would turn BET on for small black people. Like that's could be dangerous. Brain trashing could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna sit down with them and kind of do some analysis of what you're watching.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, it's funny when you guys are talking about like why people are insecure. I do notice that they're insecure, and what ends up happening is they have to, obviously, they tend to hide it, so they'll start something with black people to gain some type of control over them to show, okay, I'm not insecure, I have control over you, I'm better than you, which is an insecurity, of course, and they have to keep maintaining that control. And it's funny because, was it yesterday? I was at work, and this person, he's Spanish, and he cleans, the toilets and stuff, and that's what he gets paid to do, to clean. And he's Mexican. So I'm sitting there minding my own business. This white male who I just dislike because he sits right by me, and he doesn't like being over here because he gets paid to do nothing, really. So he's sitting there, looking up, hunting gear and guns and stuff. So I'm sitting there, and he's like going up to this guy who's cleaning. He has his headphones on. He's like snapping his fingers at him. He's like, yo. And he's like, and he's, he doesn't speak that well, English. And he's like, yes. And he's like, why did you leave the food? He's like, why did you leave the food in the conference room over the weekend? He's like, the whole place stunk up, the whole conference room. So he was trying to talk to him. He's like, never mind. And he's like, from now on Fridays, clean the conference room and throw the food out. I was like sitting there. I'm like, what's going on here? So the Hispanic guy, he's telling him, he's trying to explain to him, and he won't even let him explain. He's like, no, Friday, clean. He first of all, that's not even his boss. So I don't even know why he's talking. So you can tell he looked kind of disappointed. He just brushed him off, and and then he just continued vacuuming. And then it's weird. I saw him look back at the white guy. Like, he gave him this really, disturbing look at him. Like, how dare you, say that to me? Like, you're not my boss. Like, how dare you say that to me? It was very rude. So what happened today, I saw the whole thing, and I told him, I was like, hey, don't worry about it. There's no need. On Fridays, that was just like a one-time thing. I don't know what he was talking about. And he was telling me, he's like, he was telling me, he's like, Chantel, like, this guy told me Friday to not touch the food. He told me to leave everything there. Oh, he told you, yeah, he told me to leave everything there, and now he's yelling at me because I didn't remove it when he told me to leave it there? I was like, oh, Lord. So I think this guy he knew he told him to leave it there. And he, instead of admitting his wrongdoing, instead of saying, oh, my bad, he gets it on him, and it's like, yo, you're supposed to clean this up, when he was the one who told him to leave it there. That's not his fault. So there's this guy being insecure. Instead of owning up to his fault, he figured, well, let me blame the Mexican guy, the guy who's cleaning the place, when even though I'm the one who told him to leave it there. That's not his fault. I was really mad that that happened, you know, and I'm like, that's rude. I'm like, oh, God, it's like so friggin' annoying. This guy is like so rude. I told the guy, the Hispanic guy, I told him, if I had known he had said that to you, not to remove it, I would have told him right then and there, well, you told him not to move it. That's not his fault. I would have, if he had told me the information, I would have literally cursed him out right then and there. Because he sees me looking at, I'm like turning my head, I'm looking at the whole situation, and he's just like yelling at this guy. Like, who are you? You're not his boss. He doesn't report to you. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's been my experience.
It's a system of white supremacy. White people are always the boss, even if they're subservient to you.
Ashe.
I don't know. That really made me pissed off the whole day, and I had to go up to the guy and let him know.
Malcolm X has the audio where he's saying that.
Yeah.
I remember looking on the internet the other day of the top 25 richest people in the world, and at number one, this is how white people are so eager to be at the top. At the top of the list on number one, it said that the richest man ever in human history was a West African by the name of Mansa Musa. He owned 50% of the world's gold and salt. And white people were so distraught by it that he was richer than the Rothschilds. And they were so distraught by it and saying, how could this list is wrong and this can't be, and now they trying to depict Mansa Musa as an Arab when he was always depicted as a black man throughout history. It's just anything that's associated with black that's good, white supremacists won't accept because it contradicts their theory that they have on African people.
We will leave it there. We'll pick back up workplace racism. That's what I said. Should never be silence or people feeling like they don't have anything to talk about. When it gets to workplace racism, I'm sure everybody should have, I think, at least one story per week, if not more than that, where they have an observation or something that they saw. Constant activity on the job, worldwide, white people practicing racism on the job this Saturday for the compensatory call-in and Friday evening for the Warmth of Other Suns, Isabel Wilkerson's 13th installment tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I hope it was a constructive investment of everyone's Thursday evening. Archive will be uploaded. Hopefully won't have the audio issue tomorrow with my line. Not sure what happened with that, but that should be cleaned up by tomorrow. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Great hearing from everyone. I hope that we'll have feedback for tomorrow. And definitely if you have any other racism observations on the job, make notes, save them for Saturday. We'll share then. There was a racist comment I'll get in before we wrap things up. The city of Atlanta, I think Monday, the Falcons, they were on Monday Night Football and they lost. And I always cheered because they were so racist towards Michael Vick. I'm always glad to see that franchise fail now. And the same night, the Braves, they got eliminated from the playoffs, baseball playoffs. And this white person on Twitter, they said, this is make sure I get my joke in. They said Monday night, this was the worst night for the city of Atlanta since President Lincoln stole all their free labor. And they were like, oh, that's so funny, ha, 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 ha. Racist humor, racist jokes all the time, all day long. That is the preeminent idea in the mind of white people, racist man, racist woman, racist child. We were talking about Michael Jackson. Bruce Fein, she wrote a great essay on racist white children. Paris Jackson, how she understands, very young, teenager. She understands I'm white and what that means, and you're seeing it already. It'll be on the blog by the end of the week, her essay on Paris Jackson and the racist white child, racism-notes.blogspot.com. Check for it. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks all for tuning in. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. And once again, reading is much, 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 much more important than watching television, even Breaking Bad. We'll be back soon. The creator, it has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Context of White Supremacy, signing out.